Hey, good Monday, everybody. Great to see you. Got an update for you on a major winter storm that could be on the way this week through portions of the deep south from Texas all the way through the Carolinas, the mid-Atlantic, and potentially even up into the Northeast. Now, before we get there, though, we are still ending out our ongoing winter storm that is still going to bring plenty of snow into portions of the mid-Atlantic before today is over. Now, if you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Gerald. I'm a meteorology major at the University of North Carolina, Charlotte, and if you haven't already subscribed, go ahead, hit the bell for the latest notifications, and like the video. That'll make sure that you're up to date with the latest model guidance and a breakdown of that guidance as we continue a very active stretch here through January. Also, go ahead, comment, let me know where you're watching from. I also do want to mention that I am very thankful for all of the growth recently. We have seen a tremendous increase in support over the channel. So thank you to all of you who are new, and thank you to my returning viewers who are coming back. Alrighty, with that said, let's jump on into things because we do have a couple of really feisty storms on the way that we need to break down. Now, currently looking at satellite loop, you can see what was our storm from yesterday has slowly crossed across the country since yesterday afternoon across the Ohio Valley and now getting into the mid-Atlantic this morning, and behind it, a new piece of energy coming in out of the Pacific. You see this little blob spinning towards the Pacific Northwest? That's our next storm system on the way, and as it enters the U.S. today, we're going to finally begin to sample that data and learn more about what's going to happen later this week. Now, current radar conditions out there are an absolute mess through portions of the southeast and mid-Atlantic, still seeing snow from St. Louis all the way into Ohio, Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, Harrisburg State College, Philadelphia, New Jersey. Also beginning to see that snow starting to fly around on this Monday, and heavy snow continuing from D.C. up through Baltimore, all the way down into the Delmarva, into southern New Jersey, the entire state of Delaware getting in on that snowy action, and an icy mess through central and southern Virginia. We've even got ice down well into the foothills of North Carolina from Hickory up to Wilkesboro, not far from Charlotte, seeing some ice reports just north of the city along Lake Norman. Definitely a real icy mess out there for millions of Americans this morning, and unfortunately this could just be a precursor to what's on the way with our next storm system, which is really only potentially a couple days away. Now, these are our current alerts out there. The key is at the bottom for you, so you can go ahead and find your county, associate the color with what's on the map there, but you get the idea here. Plenty of winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories still from Illinois into Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio, West Virginia, Virginia, through the Delmarva, the entire state of Maryland and Delaware under a winter storm warning, and these newly issued winter weather advisories extending all the way from Newport News down just north of Charlotte into Statesville and Lake Norman, and this does include even the southern mountains of North Carolina now. And on top of that, it's windy. The storm moving through, quite a tight pressure gradient with it. That's kicking up the wind, and that wind is absolutely howling from Alabama all the way through the Midlands of South Carolina, where you're definitely feeling this front as it moves through. And speaking of feeling it, the temperatures are also dropping like a rock out there, and that could set the stage for later this week when our next low pressure moves through. Low pressure and cold temperatures during the winter time, that spells wintry trouble for someone, and we'll talk about who that could be here in just a moment. Now, before we get there, let's quickly time out the rest of our ongoing storm. This afternoon, snow and ice are going to basically continue for everyone in the mid-Atlantic from Virginia northbound into Pennsylvania and New Jersey, beginning to taper off into the Ohio Valley. One last little band of snow through Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio. That could bring another additional 1 to 3 inches of snowfall, but likely not a big deal considering what you've already seen. This will really just add insult to injury for many of you folks. Now, a little bit of a lull into D.C. this afternoon, the time again right above my head here. This is 2 p.m. today. You're seeing a little bit of a dry slot working into Virginia, North Carolina, and up through Maryland. We are going to get another band of snow on the backside, though. This is this evening, right after the sun goes down, and this could add another quick couple of inches on top of what snow or ice totals you've already gained today from D.C. all the way even down into south central Virginia through the Delmarva, the DMV as a whole, likely going to get that snow out of that back end band. And then we get towards midnight tonight and we're all clear and we're finally done with this winter storm. And then we can finally begin to kind of gauge what is on the way with the next one. Now, I will briefly mention, or show you, I should say, snowfall to come. And not a lot of snow by any means out west into the Ohio Valley, where most of it has already fallen. And I think even this, depending on when you're watching the video, some of this may have already fallen. Just know, though, throughout the day today, expect another 1 to 3 inches of snow in this circled area from southern Indiana, southern Ohio, and into much of the northern half of Kentucky. So if you've already gotten 2 inches of that by the time you're watching this, then obviously less to come. Now, where we are going to see more prolonged snow today, that's here into portions of DC and right through the heart of Maryland and Delaware, where still another 6 to 8 inches of snow is on the way. And by the way, give me those reports. Tell me how much snow you got out of the storm. Always love to read those and kind of see how the forecast verified for each location. But I do think the Delmarva and the DMV as a whole has a good shot still getting another half a foot of snow throughout the day today, and then even into the evening as that final little band pushes on through. Could also expect maybe a little bit of northwest flow snow down into the mountains of North Carolina, and can't even rule out some flurries or a light dusting down into North Alabama and through the heart of Tennessee with that little back end band of energy. Could overperform a little bit down that way. All right, so that is the current storm. Let's go ahead now and break down this map. And this is our storm energy map. I think that's kind of what we're just going to start calling it from now on. To get more into the nitty gritty, though, this is technically our 500 millibar height anomaly, or not anomaly, but relative vorticity map. So basically, it just shows where we have spin about halfway up in the atmosphere. And this is very useful when forecasting what's going to happen at the surface. Meteorology 101 is the top and the bottom are interchangeable, or not interchangeable, but interconnected and kind of webbed together. And what's happening in one part affects the other part, and what's happening in the other part affects the other half. So it's definitely very important to look at the top and bottom when forecasting any sort of storm system across anywhere in the world, really. So here's the setup, and I'm going to actually back it up for you right about to where we're at now. So today's Monday. This is late Monday morning. I'm going to go ahead and circle, or I guess put an X over. Now we'll circle. I'll circle a couple of things here. Notice these little pieces of energy. These are the two pieces that are going to be responsible for our next major winter storm. The good news is this first piece here finally working ashore, so we should get data for that one by this afternoon's model runs, and that'll help us get a better idea of what's on the way later this week. The second area back this way, still over the Pacific Ocean, and in fact, it won't really make it ashore to land and won't be sampled by our weather balloons probably until right about here. This is Wednesday morning. So again, by the Wednesday morning model runs, we will have a much better idea again on what's going to happen. The problem is the storm's really going to begin by Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So this is one of those storms that it's going to fluctuate a lot over a period just before the storm happens. And that's not necessarily because we don't know how meteorology works. It's more of a data problem. We just don't have enough data on the system yet to fully analyze the likely impacts. But we have a good idea of the general idea of what could be on the way, and I can tell you for sure what's important that we don't know yet, and this is what that is. So here we go. This is Wednesday morning. This is our GFS American model. Here is our southern piece of storm fuel or storm energy. We know it's going to be placed down here. What we don't know is how this northern piece is going to interact with it. We're already going to have cold locked into place. Our current storm system that's working on through, that's bringing energy down north and really locking in plenty of Arctic air, plus the snowpack that's being laid right now is going to push that Arctic air even further south than it normally would. So cold air, we know, will be around for most people in the south. Now, what the latest American model does is uses this northern energy up here, comes down, and by Thursday morning, pictured below, that northern energy scoops up the southern energy and they begin to phase together. That basically just means they combine. So you go from two pieces of energy to one big piece of energy on the GFS model, and it takes a little bit of time, but this begins to spin up here. And you get a positively tilted trough over the southern plains. This tells me that the storm is just beginning to get its act together. It's taking time for all the physics to do their job on that phasing process. Then it becomes neutrally tilted on the model right around here. This is Saturday evening, basically over the Tennessee Valley and the Carolinas. This means the storm is starting to get into that second gear, and the surface storm itself will begin to strengthen, and then it becomes negatively tilted just offshore of the Northeast, and that's when this has the potential to become a nor'easter. Now, the question is, will it become a nor'easter right next to the Northeast, or will it be too far offshore? And that's what we'll need to figure out. But I want you to kind of look at this picture right into here. This is the American model. Kind of look at the orientation of this energy. See how it's kind of a nice circle and it has this kind of neutral tilt. Let me show you the European model now for the exact same time frame. Here's the storm system, here's our northern piece of energy, and what happens is the same general idea. It comes down and scoops it up, but it does a much less efficient job, and what you get at the same time frame is kind of this slung out, messy vorticity map. It's not that nice circle like the GFS had. Let me go back. Here's the GFS. See how it's this nice kind of shape, this kind of oval shape to it. If I look at the European, it's kind of a mess and it's strung out and it's just not as pretty. And that plays big ramifications for what happens at the surface with the storm system. Now, the European later on tries to do the same thing the GFS did. It's just too little too late and ramps it up well off the coast. And we're pretty far from a nor'easter on that model run. Let's go ahead and show you the surface though, because obviously this is what's going to affect your day-to-day life with this storm system. Let's move it ahead. So this is overnight Wednesday into Thursday. Notice winter weather beginning already to develop across Texas. This will happen as the storm is beginning to phase. I think we'll get rounds of precipitation across the Lone Star State, likely frozen in and around Dallas-Fort Worth. It'll be an icy kind of mix in between Dallas and Austin and areas like that, and then all rain along the Gulf Coast. And you can see that pretty well here on the GFS. And this is, again, brand new straight from this morning. You can see that snow building in. This is Thursday morning, time above my head. This is in Eastern time, by the way, so subtract an hour if you're in the plains. But at this point, we don't need to really be nitpicking each hour. Just know this is the general time frame. Thursday morning, Thursday afternoon and evening, we get this winter storm to really begin to blossom. We've got a big shield of snow over Arkansas, including Little Rock, getting into Memphis. We've got heavy snow through southern Missouri, extreme northern Mississippi, Alabama on the latest run of the GFS, and even get some snow into extreme north Georgia from Rome and then into the western Carolinas. Starts as snow in Greenville, Spartanburg, Asheville getting some nice snow. This is Friday morning. And then by Friday afternoon, you notice it kind of fizzles out a little bit and you're thinking, all right, well, is the storm done? Is it, kind of just not going to happen? Not quite. What's happening here is in the upper levels, again, we're still ramping up back here. Everything's getting its act together, and this is a little bit of a lull as it's in that process of getting its act together. But once this favorable block of conditions for a strong storm system at the surface moves over our storm system, it'll once again ramp up in a big way, and you can see that here on the GFS model. Ice and snow beginning across the western Carolinas, or I guess continuing, I should say, overnight Friday. We get one little surge of ice into the Triad and into the Raleigh area here by Saturday morning, and then here comes a bigger surge as the storm finally begins to ramp up. We've got a winter storm ongoing in East Tennessee, the mountains of North Carolina, and it gets warm into the Carolinas itself. Now, I'm skeptical that with a low pressure placement like this, that this would be all rain. I think we'd have a lot of ice in here. Probably not all pretty snow, but definitely still a winter storm, I think, with a look like this. Into the Triad, the foothills, the Triangle, even into the I-85 corridor of South Carolina. And then the storm cranks up, it gets really strong, and it's just a little too far offshore, but becomes a blockbuster-looking nor'easter just only about 100 or 200 miles too far offshore to really affect anybody. So that's the GFS with the more amped solution quicker. The European model will show you the same thing. You get that winter weather to break out over Texas. This is Thursday morning. Again, time right above my head here, and then gets into Little Rock, into Memphis. Very similar look to the GFS. This is Friday morning. Even got a wintry mix in northern Mississippi, northern Alabama, and all of this works eastbound, and it's mainly rain into Georgia. It's mainly rain into South Carolina, and you get the same idea. The storm begins to fizzle out a little bit here as that upper level energy kind of gets displaced a little bit from our actual energy. And then as the storm finally cranks up on the European, then you see it gets really strong off the coast. But before it, ever really gets to drop big snow or ice totals across the mid-Atlantic and the Carolinas. Now, that's just one model run, so again, take it with a grain of salt. Now, let me show you the ensembles, because I think that this is doing a pretty good job of showing the general idea of possibilities here. So these are the American ensembles for overnight Thursday. And notice down here, see all these little dots? These are low pressure placements. So every little member that makes up the GFS ensemble suite here has the low pressure in a different placement. But you get the idea. Strong confidence there will be low along the Gulf Coast here, just off the coast of Texas and Louisiana overnight Thursday. We get this into Friday morning, continuing to trek across the Gulf Coast and strengthening right around this time. But this is also when when the models diverge a little bit. See how some of the members are further north inland, some of them are further offshore, and then where they really diverge is right into here, and this is where the forecast becomes really tricky for our folks in the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic. I think we feel pretty good at this point about Texas, Arkansas, Mississippi, that range. I think you're going to get snow and ice. That's almost a certain. It's a matter of how much and exactly where the line sets up. For the Carolinas, the Mid-Atlantic, and the Northeast, this is where the forecast becomes more tricky, and this is why the models diverge. Some have a major nor'easter right along the Northeast coastline. Some are well offshore and have a big storm that's just too far to really do much of anything. So which one of those solutions do we get? What is the final answer? That's what we're going to need to find out. And either way, though, the GFS ensembles blow this storm up as it's pulling up the coast. It's just a matter of how close to the coast is it as it is doing that. I'll show you the European as well. It's the exact same story, folks. We agree on the Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas part of the forecast. The models, though, diverging as we get to the southeast. Heck, even here, just Saturday morning over the Carolinas. Is low pressure all the way up near Columbia and just bringing a rainstorm? Is it along the coast and bringing a snow and ice storm? And then as it pulls up the coast, more question marks begin to arise. How close is it to the coast? European model, same story. We've got some members that have a 960, 970 millibar low, bringing a major nor'easter to Jersey, Long Island, up the 95 corridor. And some of them have just as strong of a low, but it's too far offshore to do much of anything. So a lot of questions still to answer. And like I said, the good news, by this afternoon, that first piece of energy will be sampled. We'll know more about it. But that second piece of energy, we won't really even know much about that till Wednesday morning's model run. So a while to go here. I don't want you to lose hope if the model doesn't show snow for you right now. I also don't want you to lock in that you're going to see snow if you're, let's say, Tennessee eastbound up the East Coast, because we still have a time that we're going to need to iron out the forecast. Now, encouraging news for some folks and not so encouraging news for others. This is the chance of at least an inch of snow falling from the GFS ensemble members. And notice how this kind of upticks through Texas, right through the Red River Valley of Oklahoma. Good chance of seeing snow there. Same thing for Arkansas. This is Thursday to Friday afternoon. And then chances even getting up into the Ohio Valley, but dropping compared to yesterday for the Western Carolinas, North Georgia, just much of the Carolinas in general, a lower end chance. Greenville, Spartanburg, about a 40% chance. Asheville, probably closer to a 50% chance of at least an inch of snowfall. And then the chances get pretty high here into the apps from West Virginia down to the mountains of North Carolina, Virginia, even eastern Kentucky here. And you notice that signal even trying to get on into the Northeast, but it's at that point that the models diverge. And not to say that it's not going to happen. It's just, there's a lot of spread. So we need to kind of iron out the details there. Now, what about the European ensemble members? Same story for Texas. Like I said, right into here, this is where we're really confident. We're going to get snow and ice from Oklahoma down into Texas, Arkansas. I would even say southern Missouri and western Tennessee, and probably even the northern half of Mississippi going to get something out of this. Then this is where the signal becomes tougher. You notice the chances dropping. The signal's still there. There's going to be a storm. It's just the models begin to separate. Some have the snow more up here. Some have it down here. And because of that, the highest area right now of confidence would be Tennessee, extreme northern Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, western North Carolina. And then the signal also pretty good into the Mid-Atlantic. We're running about a 40-50% shot here through North Carolina and Virginia on this model, including Greensboro, Raleigh, up into Newport News, Virginia Beach, through the Delmarva. A pretty good shot out of this one. So you folks could really double up this week and have quite the January if some of these models are correct. And then the chances get a lot slimmer in the Northeast again as the models really begin to diverge. All right, final thing I'll show you, this is freezing rain. This is another concern I have. Obviously, we want a big snowstorm, but I think ice is going to be a problem with this one for folks from kind of Texas all the way into the deep south up into the western Carolinas. I'm watching this area specifically for the potential of some ice. This is the same map I just showed you, the chance of at least basically a tenth of an inch of ice from freezing rain. So here we go. Notice chances pretty high over Texas and then getting into northern Louisiana, southern Arkansas, through the heart of Mississippi, northern Alabama, northern Georgia, and the western Carolinas, that I-85 corridor all the way up into Charlotte, into Greensboro, Raleigh, potentially even as far south as Columbia northbound has a shot at ice out of this. Places like Chapin, Irmo, some of those northern suburbs, and then up the I-77 corridor, kind of towards Rock Hill, going to run the chance of ice with a storm track that the models are showing. And then that even gets into portions of Virginia and clears out by the latter half of next weekend. So that's what we're seeing right now in the models, folks. Still a lot to figure out, but feeling confident we're going to get big snow and ice down through Texas, Arkansas, parts of Oklahoma, and also confident there's going to be some sort of winter storm from the Tennessee Valley through portions of the Carolinas, the Mid-Atlantic, and potentially up the East Coast. But the details to be ironed out there. Alrighty, folks, I appreciate you tuning in. Have a great rest of your day. I'll see you this evening for another update, and have a great one. Stay safe, stay warm.